Hey, welcome to episode 4 in the blog development series. This is Andy again, and in today's video, it's all about delivering killer content. So what exactly is considered killer content? Well, that will purely depend on your niche and target audience. Many people believe that you have to have a degree on the topic to be able to write on it. But in this video, I'll reveal strategies on how to deliver great content without wasting years of studying. I will also break down the basics of search engine optimization, enough to get your feet really wet. So without further ado, I'm going to hop over to my computer and let's just dive right in.
So I've actually prepared a little slide presentation just to dive into on how to get killer content and setting up a few pages before we actually move on. So the first thing I actually want to start off with is the important pages to have. Here are just some of the list of important pages that every blog should have, and the reason why you should have them is not only is it user friendly, it builds up trust with your readers, and it's also search engine friendly as well. So the main goal here for search engines, they're actually looking for real websites, okay? So not websites that are created purely for spam, websites that are planned to actually stick around and actually offer value. So the very first page I actually want to discuss about is the About Us or About Me or Meet Us kind of page, right? And this one's purely to personalize your blog. It's, again, it's crucial to have on any blog just so that, people get to actually understand what kind of person you are. Even if you do decide to use, let's say, a pen name, at least it kind of builds a character around that persona. And it's really important to have so that, if readers do follow you, they have that sense of connection, okay? So that's really crucial. The second page I want to discuss is the contact page. Now, you're going to have a lot of people wanting to actually connect with you in, some way or another. Whether they have any kind of questions that they don't feel like, commenting in public, you want to have an easy way for them to actually shoot you an email so that they know it's all private. And that was the reason why in the last episode, I got you to actually install the Contact Form 7. It's just a really easy way to actually, get connected so that you can answer anyone's kind of questions. Now, the next 3 pages, the privacy policy, terms of use, and disclaimers, okay? So these are obviously legal pages. Now, I'm not a lawyer in any way, so I don't actually practice any of that. I don't have any knowledge when it comes to actually, writing up a proper privacy policy or, any terms of use. I do recommend getting an expert to help you out with that, a professional. Otherwise, there are tools out there on Google that you can just search for. Just want to be sure that, any advice that I actually give you is just advice. Don't take it wholeheartedly. As I said, I don't practice law. But it's important to have this page up here, not only to, save you from any kind of legal action, but search engines actually see it as a real website and that's professional and, you're here for business. So an example of a privacy policy would be maybe, let's say if you are tracking or if you are dropping any cookies onto their computer, it's always good to actually mention that. Any third-party action, anything that's going to happen behind the scenes that they might not be aware of, it has to be in the privacy policy. For terms of use, you want to make sure that none of your content's copied and how they actually use your content is, the right way. And then any disclaimers. So if you do, let's say if you are writing a blog on, internet marketing, you want to make sure that you do have income disclaimers to say that it's not guaranteed that they can actually make it that certain amount. Or whether, let's say you're in the weight loss niche and you say that in one of your posts, you say lose 20 kilos in 7 days, right? Which is absolutely ridiculous. You want to make sure that you have a disclaimer there saying that obviously this is exaggerated or this is not going to work for everyone, okay? And then lastly, if you are sending them any kind of affiliate links, make sure that you do have an affiliate disclaimer saying that any links that they click on this website, that it's possible that, you can make a small change from it. It's just all there just to really protect you as a blogger, because the last thing you really want is, you put your heart and soul into your blog and only to have it shut down because of missing, a few pages. So I actually highly recommend setting up all these pages prior any kind of traffic generation, and so that you minimize that risk of actually losing it. But enough about those pages, let's move on. So when it actually comes to writing content for your blog, it's obviously going to always be different depending on your niche, depending on your audience, depending on your character, and there's all these different factors to actually, to really consider. But here's a list of, the different types of content that you can actually write about. And this is quite general, so I made it quite general so that it doesn't matter what kind of niche you're in, you can actually incorporate these types of content. So the how-tos, so those are how-tos and tutorials, they're kind of in the same boat, where this type of content is really about education. If you're trying to help them out in some kind of way in a particular niche, or, it's like one of those step-by-step kind of guides. This kind of content has been really popular as of late. It's one of those posts where it's like, you know, your top 10 training tips, or 10 reasons why you shouldn't eat this food, right? Those are kind of your list posts where it's breaking down everything into numbers, and so that it's really easy to digest, and you know, all they have to do is just skim through it. So I can see why that's popular. You got your guides. So guides, again, like, you know, your how-tos and tutorials, it's like a step-by-step process. Generally, it's quite long, quite lengthy, and the whole purpose of it is to really educate the person. Now, reviews. Review posts are pretty much like your money-making posts, where you give your opinion on a particular, let's say, a product or an offer. It could also be, let's say, you know, food, or some movies, or any kind of reviews. Like, you know, you want to give your own opinion about it, and you know, what you really liked about it, what you didn't like about it. And this type of post is more to help people decide on, you know, what they actually want to buy, or maybe if they want to watch a movie, they wanted to check out the reviews and see what other people thought about it. And it's just getting other people's opinion. And the last one on the list is the resource tab. So, you know, this type of post can just be all about, you know, sending links to different websites. So it could be curated information where you actually link out to all these different types of information. It could be like a resource of all the tools that you use, and so on. So I mean, there are a lot more different types of content out there. These are more of the popular ones, the more trendy ones, and it's just something to help you get started with. And again, you know, there's no one perfect type of content that covers everything. You just got to test it out and say, you know, which one your audience really likes. But once you've decided on, you know, what type of content that you actually want to use, let's talk about how we want to deliver it. Now, obviously, the typical one would be your articles. So this is like your written post. Now, how many words you want to write is really entirely up to you. I will actually get into, you know, how to actually write up your content, but, you know, just know that articles, it is one way of delivering your content. Infographics is something that's really popular, and I mean, I guess the reason why people really enjoy infographics is because it's visual, and generally it's pretty easy to share as well. So infographics is a really great way to make your content go viral. Videos, so videos, again, you know, really great for like how-tos type of content. So not only is it visual, they can actually see it over your shoulder, so they can see exactly what they need to do, and it's just, yeah, a great way to actually deliver content. Now, the last three, webinars, podcasts, and interviews, you know, they're all kind of in the same boat. So depending on how you actually want to deliver that content, because sometimes, you know, with interviews, you actually want to bring someone on, an expert, and all you have to do is just ask questions, right? It could just be an FAQ. And you can deliver it through either a webinar or podcast. But again, it's entirely up to you on what you actually feel comfortable with. I know some people don't actually enjoy shooting videos, so maybe that might be more difficult than for others. At the same time, it's all about what your audience likes as well. So, I mean, if your readers don't really enjoy podcasts, or you do have like a whole series of podcasts, but no one actually listens to it, then it's kind of you know, a waste of time, and you can focus on more on what your actual target audience really wants. But the main thing about the content, well, I feel like the main thing about the content is writing compelling headlines, okay? So, I mean, headlines are always going to be the very first thing that they read, so it's going to have the first impression. How well you actually write the headline is going to determine whether that person will actually click on your blog post and read it. And so if someone was to land on your website and they don't know who you are and they haven't gone through your content yet, if they don't see any compelling headlines or something that they want to read, you're not going to be able to convert that visitor into a reader. You know, you have to think of it like a newspaper. Newspapers always use, you know, really compelling headlines, because that they know that a lot of people like to skim through their newspaper, and if nothing really stands out to them, they're not going to actually continue reading the rest of the article, right? And the same goes for your blog as well. So by converting that visitor into a reader, you'll obviously be increasing your click-through rates and your page views, and that's going to be really important. I'll explain why that's important a bit later. I remember reading a statistics not long ago that 8 out of 10 people would actually read your post just from your headline alone. So that's 80%. To me, that's pretty important, and so you really want to focus on writing really good ones. So the next 3 points are actually strategies on how to actually write really good headlines. So using numbers. Using numbers is a really big one because, you know, for some reason, people just love seeing numbers. You see it in magazines all the time. When you actually go on the front cover, you'll always see some kind of number on the front page, which is also a great place to actually do your research as well. Many times I actually just jump on Google Image and just type up, you know, any kind of magazine in the particular niche and see what kind of headlines that they're using, and see what, you know, how I can actually use it for my actual advantage. The next point is playing on emotions. Okay, so you want to use words that can really feel. And I know it's a bit iffy, this one, and It's a bit hard to explain, but if you can actually use words that really brings out the emotion, then you know you've nailed it. And then the last tip that I like to use is questions. As humans, it's hard to actually see a question and not want to answer it. And so when you're actually using that as your headline, it actually draws your eyes straight to the headline, because as soon as you see that question mark, as soon as you see that question, you automatically just want to answer it. So really do take your time when it actually comes to writing your headlines, because remember, it is 80% of readers that actually continue on just from the headline itself. Now, when it actually comes to the body or the content itself, you should really come up with a game plan, okay? And you have to really decide to yourself, what's the goal? What's the purpose of this individual post? Is it to actually get that person to click a link? Is it to actually get them to subscribe to your list? Or maybe it's actually to turn them into a loyal reader. Whatever it is, just make sure that you do have that goal in mind and actually, aim for it. But in most cases, to really write killer content, you need to provide value. Okay, you need to be able to actually come up with the benefit for that reader. So if a person was to actually read your blog post and they don't feel like they benefit from it, then you know that you didn't provide enough value. Another thing to bear in mind is the engagement. Okay, there's nothing worse than, going through a blog post and only having it to be like a dictionary, right? If you're reading it and it kind of feels like a dictionary or robotic, that's where you really get bored, and honestly, you don't really want to read on. You're not going to draw them to actually read all your other posts, right? If it's going to be plain boring. So it needs to be engaging. So, whether you actually add personality into it or a bit of humor, any way it is, you just want to make it engaging. Now, the next one is where a lot of people get it wrong. A lot of people believe that to actually write really good content, you need to use words like fancy words and sound very intelligent, okay? The real key here is to make it as easy as possible to read. And the only way you're going to make it easy to read is if you keep it simple, right? Don't overcomplicate your content. If you're overcomplicating the content, then a lot of people are going to be confused. So just keep it simple. Next is actually breaking up your content into subheadings. Now, subheadings work really well for people that really like to skim. And with so much information online now, it's really easy for a person to actually just, go through the content and just skim through it. Now, the way you actually counter skimmers is to actually break up your content with subheadings so that they know exactly what to read. So if your subheading is really intriguing, then they're more likely going to read that paragraph. It's kind of similar to your headline, right? So your headline's purpose is to actually get them to read your content, but the subheadings is to actually get them to read that paragraph. Now, bullet points is also a really great way to actually counter skimmers as well. Bullet points are deemed, really easy to read. It's generally shortened. And so if you actually skim down a web page and you see bullet points, generally that's where people like to stop and actually check out what they are. So anywhere possible, if you can add bullet points, do so. And the last thing about content is to actually add images, okay? So images allow a reader's eye to have a break. My own advice is to actually keep your image related, okay? So you don't want to go completely off topic and just add an image just for the sake of it. Just be sure that when you do add the image, you make the file size as small as possible, just so it doesn't take up, all that time to actually load just because of your image. Now, the last slide I actually want to go through is the basic on-site SEO, okay? And if you don't know what SEO stands for, it stands for Search Engine Optimization. And the whole purpose for SEO is to get your content ranking on search engines. So this is just another form of traffic. And you can imagine that, if you were ranking on the #1 spot in Google, you'll be pouring in a lot of traffic. Now, the reason why I kept this slide last is because I don't want you to focus too much on it. One of the biggest mistakes for bloggers is that they try to rank their website and they do everything they can to please search engines, that when real people actually try to read their content, it's all over the place, alright? It just doesn't make sense. At the end of the day, we're trying to please users and not the search engines, okay? So always keep that in mind. So when it comes to on-site SEO, it's all about the user experience. And search engines know this. Right, they know when a person actually lands on your website and leaves straight away. That's why everything adds up. That's why you want a compelling headline so that they actually, click on your blog and actually go through different pages. You want to write really good content so that they stay in your blog as long as possible. You want to make sure that your website's up to speed. And that's why I highly recommend Traffic Planet hosting, because, they're all about speed, and speed is a huge factor when it comes to user experience. So the main key here is to actually please that reader. Be sure that if anyone was to land on your website, that they'd actually stay on your website. And if you can't do that, then don't even bother with on-site SEO. But once you've got that covered, let's talk about bits and pieces where we can actually focus on and build on that on-site SEO. So first point is keyword in title, okay? So what keywords are is the actual search term that they would type in a search engine. So let's say if I wanted to learn how to cook, what would I type up into Google? You know, how to cook. And let's say our blog was about cooking, and we did have a post on, you know, how to cook. We want to make sure that our post, our content is ranking on Google. So the way we'd actually go about this is to actually have that keyword in our title. And this doesn't mean the keyword alone, all right? Because remember, we have to write compelling headlines as well. So you have to incorporate that into the title. Now, another thing that a lot of people talk about is the keyword density. Now, when it actually comes to keyword density, I actually want you to scrap that completely. Okay, don't even think about it. When you're writing your content, just think about, you know, how you want to write to engage the reader. Because as soon as you start thinking about keyword density, all you're going to do is going to be spamming your keyword all over the place, all right? And you don't want to do that. By spamming your keywords, you risk having it over-optimized. And that's one of the big factors where a lot of sites get penalized for. So just write it for the readers. A way to actually counter being over-optimized is using similar words, all right? So don't actually use how to cook over and over and over again, you know? Come up with different words, you know, mix it up a little, just so that you're not using the same phrase over and over and over. Now, the next point is interlinking and linking out. So when you're actually writing up your content, you want to try to link any kind of post that's related, whether it's on your website or external. Think of it like Wikipedia, and you're looking into some particular topic. They have a lot of links that actually point into different directions within the website. And so when it comes to interlinking, you want to have something that's similar to, you know, what Wikipedia actually does. And the reason why you want to use interlinks is because it helps users to find, you know, other related posts within your blog, and it also helps with page views as well. So, you know, you're actually getting them to read all your other content, so they stay longer on your blog. Now, when it comes to linking out, that's to actually link an external website. You want to make it seem that your website is a hub for information. And in saying that, you want to make sure that all your information is categorized and structured properly. Okay, so make sure that you do use your categories within WordPress. And then when they are categorized, make sure that you don't actually link them out to unrelated posts. The aim is to keep everything relevant. So if you had a post on about, you know, how to shoot videos, you want to make sure that any links that point in or out from that content is about videos. This is so that search engines actually see that the content you actually deliver is relevant and is of high value. So to quickly sum up, you know, this whole slide presentation, make sure that when you do write content, is that you're actually writing it for a person and not a search engine. Make sure that, you know, it's engaging, it's actually really easy to digest, you know, break up the content wherever possible. It even goes the same with, you know, your videos or your podcasts. You want to make sure that, you know, people actually stay on that post as long as possible, and that they actually, you know, click around your blog. Because if search engines actually see that, you know, people are leaving your website as soon as they land on it, it's going to be deemed as a low quality website. So before I actually end this video, I want to give you a few tips and strategies on how to write killer content by doing research. Because like I said at the start of the video, you don't need to have a degree to be able to write killer content. As long as you write better than everyone else, then you've got a winning post. Okay, so the best way to actually find out what's actually working out there and what kind of content people like, and pretty much just researching as a whole, is to actually head over to our best mate, Google. You want to start by using any kind of particular search term within your niche. So for example, if we're in a dog training niche, maybe one search term we can use is how to potty train a puppy. Of course, how well you actually do your research is going to determine how high quality is your content. Now the trick here is to actually read as many articles as you can humanly possible. Okay, so for starters, or obviously skip all the ads, and for starters, just open up as many tabs as possible. Okay, so just go through the list. The very first one, just right click it, open new tab. Open new tab, open new tab, and have, you know, about 7 to 10 tabs open. Now, as you actually go through each of the content, I want you to be able to look through a few things, okay? So actually ask yourself, is this article entertaining? Okay, is it engaging? And then another question you ask yourself is, am I actually learning anything? Is this something new to me? Is this something beneficial? And then the last thing to actually check out for is the actual engagement itself. Okay, so most of these articles, especially on a blog, you'll see that there are social signals, there are comments, and all of this can take into account on how engaging it actually is. So for this actual particular article here, which is ASPCA, so there's not much going on here, but at least we know that it's very informative. So not only do we have content to actually write about, Again, you don't have, like I said many times, you don't have to be an expert in the field to actually be able to have to write about it. The goal here is to actually collect as many content as you can, curate it, and then make it better. Okay, so I mean, if you can read 10 articles, and after reading 10 articles, what's the likelihood of actually writing a better article? Okay, just pulling all the information and making it better. You've already checked out which one's engaging. You already checked out which one what people actually like, and all you have to do is just take out bit of aspects. Of course, you want to write it your own way, but do it in a style where you know that it's engaging. I think that's the main key here. Keeping it simple and engaging. And so as I read through this article, try to pick out what's important, what's really informative, at the same time what makes me drawn into it. So maybe with this article here, not so much, but I hope you get the gist. Okay, and generally right at the bottom, depending on what type of website it is, it'll have comments, and you can just read through the comments and see what people like about it. So maybe this one's not the greatest example, so I'll just close that. This one kind of looks like a blog, so something pretty handy. You can see over here that, so these are the social signals that I was talking about. It's been shared over 30,000 times, so for a fact that this article is something worth taking note of. So again, all you have to do is just go through the whole article, actually read it, and see what kind of language they're using. Is it engaging? Does it make you want to read on? What actually are you taking in? And just put all of that to your own advantage. So as you scroll all the way down to the bottom here, you can see, look at that, 424 comments. So straight away you can tell that this article is very engaging, and you just quickly go through a few of the actual comments, you can see what kind of reply people are actually leaving. So again, I recommend just going through at least 7 or 10 articles on any kind of search term. And then, once you're done with that, once you've written down notes as well, if you scroll all the way down to each of the search terms, you can see you got other search related terms as well. Again, just go through the same process. So maybe this time we actually want to look into going outside, okay? So training your puppy to actually go toilet outside. So maybe you can, open that in a new link. And then again, go through each of these websites and get in as much information as you can. So my advice here is just to take note on which actual websites are doing really well. Which one has a lot of social signals, which one has a lot of comments. Go through it thoroughly and see, how are they actually writing their content and what makes it so appealing. Once I actually go through the 10 tabs, I'd actually close all the ones that I find that wasn't important and keep open 3 or 4 tabs that I can always refer back to. And now using those 3 articles, the chances are you will be able to write a really compelling article. And I know it does sound there's a lot of work, and of course there is, building a blog, building a profitable blog isn't easy. And that's why you do have to be prepared. Each article that you write, make sure that you can do the best that you can. Because once it's up there, you don't have to worry about it anymore. And that's the beauty of it. Just remember, as you're writing the content as well, make sure that you do structure it. Make sure you have an appealing title, a really compelling title that someone would actually click on and actually read on. Break your actual content, with images. Make sure you do add a personal touch to it, because that does help with building up engagement. And once you're all done with that, you're already on the path to actually delivering killer content. So that's it for episode 4. Hope you got a pretty good idea on what kind of niche you're into and what kind of content that you're ready to write. Now in the next episode, we're actually going to touch base on how to get started with monetization. Okay, so I can't wait to actually dive into that. It's going to be some really great content and you don't want to miss out. So that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next episode.